I'm recording. All right, everybody. My name is Monica Frausto. I'm the moderator for Ms. Kateri over here. Just to let you know, this meeting is being recorded, like they just said. Please make sure your name is displayed correctly on the screen so we can take better track of attendance. Please use the chat to ask any questions, and I will relay them to Kateri during her presentation. So just a little introduction on Kateri. This is Kateri McKinney. She's an instructional lab technician in the biology department. She's been at Citrus for over 10 years. And as you can see, her background is in biology and not in Excel, but she will give us lots of tricks and tips and help us along. So this isn't a professional Excel presentation, but she's gonna give us a lot of information. And other than that, please mute yourselves, and Kateri, whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Yes, I'm Kateri, and this is going to be more of like me showing you some tips and tricks I have used over the years. And I have a couple of different examples, and I can also, I have some practice data, like sheets that I have that I can also give to Caroline that she can send out to anyone that wants them or puts them in the link for the video that's going to be recorded. So if you want to practice this stuff on your own time, you could go watch the video again, and then you'll have the actual sheets that I've made as an example to go through and practice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen really quick, and I'm going to bring up this little sheet here, which is just a regular like data sheet that has a whole bunch of information in it, and it scrolls and scrolls and scrolls and scrolls, and it has a lot of information in it. And a lot of my stuff that I work with, for instance, this is one of my real invoices tracking for the college. I work with a lot of different tracking because I do a lot of ordering for my department. And so because of that, I have to keep track of a lot of data, but I found a really good way of organizing it all, and using these different examples that I've learned, I found that it's a better way to actually display the information and then actually go use a pivot table to maybe ask questions. And if you needed to present the data in a meeting or something, it would be a little bit more easily visual if you can use a pivot chart or something like that. So for the first example here, as I'm going to show you, is sometimes when I do these, again, this is very basic and some people might already know this. When I first make a data column, usually you'll see in this little column here, the cell here, sometimes the data will be like this. When you make they're really tiny. This one's already formatted, so it's not as tiny, but it'll be like this, and you'll have to drag it over. I usually will drag it over to make sure it fits in the box. But you don't have to do that. Excel has this really cool function where you can just click it, and it will automatically adjust to whatever the size of this thing you need it to be in. For instance, if this cell was really short, you can make it to actually the size that you need it to be. You don't need to drag it over like that anymore. You can just click the box and it will automatically do that for you. Another thing that a lot of people don't realize with, I'm so used to dragging it over, but you don't have to drag it over, you just click the box. Another little tidbit before we start, just so people know, is that I usually use Control-All. So you can do Control-All to highlight all of the cells here. But another trick that you can use is you can use this little top arrow here, and it will highlight all the cells for you without having to click Control-All. So if you are like me and you have maybe when I work on these sheets, maybe I'd be trying to do multiple things at once, and having that extra hand to do Control-All, you don't need to use your other hand. You can just click the arrow here and it will highlight. And if you want to remove it, you just click somewhere in the table and it will actually remove it. For invoices, a lot of times when you see, for instance, for me, I might need to calculate how many things I need to how much should I, a total cost. So for instance, for this one, this is just a little simple one using just some different types of electronics. If this was me, it'd be more consumables for pipettes or Petri plates and things that we use on a regular basis. And I might need to know how many I need to order per semester. And that's something that you could track actually. So you don't have to go back and try and figure out, I have this many students in this class. They use this amount. Now let me do the math in my head. I'm going to need to have 80, but you actually could go through and track how many you need per semester. Or if you have staffing where you staff people that actually need to see, see student appointments or need students, you could actually track per month where you would see the high like the high levels of the students that come in versus when they don't come in. So this is another way you can, or phone call volume or whatever you want. This is just a simple example, just using a description. It doesn't have to be equipment or consumables. It could be people. It could be like numbers of volumes and everything like that. So for instance, if I wanted to figure out, like if I wanted to add these two to figure out what my total sell was, I would write in here, I could write sales value, so how many I actually sold. Again, it's not fitting the box. I click here and it'll automatically adjust to that box. You'll see here that these this unit price is in this money, that's in currency here. I can do the same thing here automatically, but first I would want, all I can do here is I click here. I can click Format Painter here, and this will actually make this whole sales value thing the same as this one. So it'll create, this one will be in currency along with this one. So you don't have to individually go down and highlight it and then go up to currency and then change it to how you want it. You can actually, once you make one column and row all complete, you can copy and paste the formatting by going to Format Painter, this little guy up here, and then using the same thing on a blank cell. So you have the formatting all down and ready to go. So for this one here, if you wanted to add these together, normally, if you are multiply them together, normally you would just go to, you would use your formula shares. There's a bunch of formulas up here in this ribbon. And you have a ton. You have, different mathematic ones. You have lookup and reference, which I'll get into in a second. Date and time, you can use a whole bunch. You can use auto sum. There's a whole bunch of things you can do here. The one I like to use for this one is typically you could use equal sign. So if you want to do a formula in Excel, you always have to start with an equal sign. That's number one. Then you would want to take the first one, so it would be the quantity, this one, and then you would use the multiplication, which in Excel, the multiplication is actually a little asterisk. And then you would click this unit price, and then it would give you, it would give you a value, push enter, and you get the value of what those two cells are. We multiplied them together. But there's a better way of doing this in this chart, especially for me and other people. You might not always have a positive number in this chart. And for reason I'm going to say that is here, you'll see there's a return. So that wouldn't be a positive number. Actually, that'd be a negative number. So for me, when I do my standing POs, sometimes I return items. So that cost should not be calculated in my actual tracking of my budget. That shouldn't be in my budgeting. So what I would want to do is I want to actually have a formula in this cell or this column here that could do both. It could do a both statement. It could account for the fact that if it is a positive or if it's a negative number. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to actually undo this cell here. I'm going to undo this, take that out, and I'm going to go to this logical button here, and I'm going to click this right here down here. It's called if. And when it comes up, it's going to come up with this box. And if you're like me, I worked with Excel, but not intensely at one time. It's more of I've just kind of gradually gotten into Excel over the years. I've learned little tips and tricks along the way from other people. I would have seen, if I had saw this and I was just starting off with Excel, I would have probably I don't know what to do with that. That's kind of overwhelming, which it looks overwhelming with all those functions, but it is actually easy to use. So for the logical test, all you would need to do is you need to take your equal sign here, and you want to say that if you want to tell Excel what to do, because it's not going to know what to do unless, so you need to know what you want to do before you actually apply it, because if you're not quite sure what you actually want it to do, it's not going to work for you. So you need to actually kind of figure out, what do I want to tell Excel to do? And then from there, you'll be able to apply all these little tricks and tips to this. So what I want to do is I want to say that if the invoice, so if it's an invoice, if A2, if an invoice, I'm going to do invoice like this. I'm going to do that. And if the value, invoice, A2, an invoice. I'm struggling with this. Into here. And what you're going to do, if the value is true, what you're going to do is you're going to have A2. You're going to have this one multiplied by this one, like that. And then this one, if it's false, you're going to have -1 times this one times this one. Sorry. See, even I struggle with it. Okay, let me clear this out really quick and go back. Just format this really quick. Painter. Go here. Okay. Let's go to invoice. Go to insert. Formulas, logical. If there we go. Equals. Invoice. Then the value, and this is going to be this one times my column here, which is J2 or J4, sorry, J3. So it's going to be I2 versus J2. And then if it's false, it's going to be -1 times my I2 times my J2, like this. Oops. I2 times this times this. And then it'll give you this 105 value, which we got before. But then now this time, if I just click, now another little trick is, normally if you do this, you know, if you take this little cross button here and you pull it all the way down, it'll apply it to all the cells, correct? But there's another trick that I learned over the years is that if you click it, just click it, double click it, it will actually populate all of the entire thing. And you can see even accounting for the returns. So the ones that we returned, it even accounted for the fact that it applied the formula to those ones that we actually returned. So for me, this is great information, but for me, what I need to know is how much money did I spend per year, you know, total. So I would want to have a total rows. And for the total rows here, I could do several things here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it into a table. So I'm going to go to home here, and I'm going to format as a table. And you can pick here a whole bunch of ways. I could go down the bottom and I could do a whole sum table, but it's a little easier to do it this way, and it looks a little nicer too. So I could pick whatever type of table I like formatted wise. I'd probably just pick this one. I like this one. I just want to make sure I get all the data collected. You can just do this too. It's up to you. You just go to format as table. I'm going to click here, and then it's going to tell me this is all the data that's in my table. It's already selected for me. Click my table has headers, because it does. It has all these headers here that I've been working with. I'm going to push OK, and then it's going to give me these little scroll down, and I can use these to actually sort my data. So these little table, this little table will allow me to sort my data, so I don't have to go searching for all my data all the time. Then you'll see if I go to the top here, there is in my little table, there's data and review, and then there's like all this stuff here. If I click on the table itself, you'll see this little ribbon, this little addition tab comes up called design. On the design, I can actually add a total row. So it actually will total the row for me at the bottom, and I already know my total row is down here, so I didn't have to scroll all the way down and do an auto sum by just making this table, which looks a lot more pleasant. You also have the total row, and I don't have to go through all that. And I can constantly add. So if I wanted to add something here, I can constantly add it, and we'll continuously populate that number over and over again. It won't require you to like re-add and go through. It'll apply the same thing. It'll apply throughout the entire, because it's all formatted for that reason. So far, does anyone have any questions at all? We're good so far? Okay. So the next thing that you can do for this is you can use these guys to sort. So if you wanted to sort them, let's say for me, I like to sort mine by date, because I know I can close out a standing PO or an invoice by date. So you could use this to sort oldest to newest. So I could say I want to have all my December appear, or if I wanted to have my newest one, let's say I'm trying to track my newest orders coming in or my newest appointments or what have you, I could then sort it from newest to newest. I could have it be newest. Sometimes when you track data, especially for invoices, you might have duplicates. On this sheet, I don't have any duplicates, but what those duplicates will show up on in Excel will be like these hash marks, these little, they look like little hashtags, like the number symbol. When that happens, you actually can go up to this box here in this ribbon and remove the duplicates. And this will actually remove any duplicates that are in your Excel sheet, which will help you. For me, I don't like, if I have duplicates, sometimes I have duplicate invoices because I was sent double from the company, and I'll just insert them. And then later on, if I wanted to clean up my data table when I send it to instruction, I could remove all the duplicates. So it's not this huge, long, like kind of complicated Excel sheet. I could actually remove those extra boxes so that they are only getting the true data, not all those extra data points. Sometimes I just have it just in case. I keep a track of it just to say that I had those extra invoices, but I did sign off on them. But when you actually were to send this to somebody, you could always remove those duplicates right there. It just says remove duplicates. Once you have it in this table format, you have a lot more options available to you and how you want to deal with your data. Again, you can do description, part number. You could do by sales value if you wanted to see you could sort by the largest sales value, and you could actually click largest to smallest, and you could actually see what invoice was your largest, or what was the total invoice the largest. And you can use this to actually, you can play with it, and you can just see, like for me, if I wanted to see what was the largest thing I sold, obviously it was to this company and it was $75,000. But if I wanted just to keep it, if I wanted to go back here, I could then sort it again. If I wanted to sort newest to oldest, I could do that as well. And you can constantly go back and forth by sorting the data, and it makes it a little easier. You can also sort it if you set your headers up correctly to what meets your needs. You can use this to your advantage. So you could sort by product. For instance, we use a lot of, when we're in person, we use a lot of plates, a lot of Petri plates, like consumable items in biology. We use a lot of media we do a lot of microbiology stuff. And so we would need to, product line wise here, I could put in what I'm using, and I could actually track this over the course of a semester. And then when it comes to to go to, buy it for next semester, not only will I know what we use the most of, the dean will know, but also any of my coworkers will also know how much we use of whatever we use. And it will actually help anyone coming in further for training purposes. It's actually really a nice way. So that the college isn't kind of like shocked that you use, you buy 150 cats every spring. Like, they're not going to be surprised by that. They already know that you buy that stuff. The product line, again, you can do a custom sort. You can sort by what it is, like printers, accessibles. You can actually unclick these and you can sort them by what you want to sort for. So whatever you're looking for, you can put it back and forth and what works for you. For this also, let's say you're working, for me, I do this a lot. I work with different vendors. So sometimes I'll make, and this is something you all can make the same way, is in my actual workbook, the little Excel worksheet thing, there's options to make another tab. So you can see I have a tab here, but you could also make a new sheet. In a new sheet, I always have a reference of my vendors. Again, I use this example because it's a little easier than my real one, because my real one, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to have to keep on formatting it. So this one's a little easier to play with. But my vendors, I'll have another little table I've created with my vendors. So if I wanted to maybe figure out well, what vendor went with 106? So it says customer account. Let's say it was vendor 106. Wouldn't it be nice to know what region this was in, or where I bought this from, or something of that nature? Let's say it's a vendor and I wanted to know, well, where did I buy that from? What vendor did I buy that from? I can actually assign a custom account number, or I can assign some sort of category of some sort. For instance, it could be, equipment, or it could be consumables, or whatever you want. Equipment, you can assign it however you like to tell Excel what to do. You could go to this little reference table, and I can actually input and see, okay, 106, what does 106 go to? And I'd have to scroll down and say, oh, 106 is from JS Automotive, and it's in Tennessee. Well, what if if I went through here and I made my own column, let's say I decided I want to have a column here that says I want to add a whole new row, and I want to have a column here. I want to say that this is going to be the region here. And I'm going to have a region here that tells me 106 is going to, and I could type in Tennessee and I could go back and forth and fill in my table. And I've done this. I know I'm guilty of this all the time. I use 2 tables open at the same time, and I go back and forth and I just fill it in manually. This is okay, but it does leave you open to some error. And why would you do all that work when you could have Excel do it for you? So one of the ways you can do this is you can actually go to, you click on this one at the top right here, not in the header, but right here. And you can click in, you can go insert formulas right here. And you can click lookup and reference. Okay, this little button here. And you're going to click VLOOKUP. And what VLOOKUP is going to do is it's going to tell you to look up values. And so you're going to say you want to look up values. So you're going to say I want to look up custom. You go to your little table and you say, okay, you want customer right here. So you're going to say the lookup value is going to be the customer table. Okay, so it's going to be customer table. Sorry, it's going to be this. Lookup value is going to be this, the customer account. The table array is going to be customers. And then here, since my table has it here, you can see it's already still here. I'm in column number 3. So all I'm going to do here is the reference table here is just going to be the number 3, because that's what I want to know, what state each of these vendors are in. Again, this is an example, just a random example. If this was specific to biology, which I don't think a lot of people would find that interesting, it would probably be vendor type, which would be, is it VWR versus Fisher Scientific, what vendor it is. Or I could even do it for biotechnology because I run that one as well. I could set it from biotech to, I could even do it by course. I could have biology 105 as one of them. I could have biotech as one of them. I could set physiology as one of them. I could set anatomy as one of them. And I could set all of them up and I can see, oh, what am I buying per semester for these particular courses? And I could actually add this table into it, and I could then sort by vendor, and I could say, oh, I bought 150 of this for anatomy. So it allows you to kind of organize your data a little bit better than having to have all these different charts and like having to constantly go back and forth. So once I push OK here, you're going to see it automatically populated where each of these came from. So the region that all of these particular vendors are located. So the region, this is a region example again. If it was my own bio example, it would probably be class type, like anatomy or physiology, or if you were doing tracking for students for like tutoring or whatever, you can track it by subject type. You could track, or if it's phone calls, like a phone log, you could track it by phone log type, or you could track however works for your needs in your department. You could track it that way. You could track it by vendor type. I only work with sciences, but if you're working with multiple disciplines, like if you're doing travel requests, or if you're doing subscriptions, I do a lot of repairs. I could have different ones for repairs as well. So I could have different ones for repairs. So that's how you would add. You can have a reference table and then add your reference table into this. So you could have it already populated and you don't have to go back through and do that. And then again, it gives you your total at the bottom. If I go all the way to the bottom, it gives you your total. Now that we have this data, it would be kind of nice to be able to kind of like use this data in a chart form or some other format that we could actually say like, we are going to use this, we are going to actually be able to say like how to filter this data, even a greater sense, we can actually filter it. And how we do that is by using something called a pivot table. And I always remember when I first started at Citrus, I would hear people mention pivot tables, and I am not a person that I usually stick with my own stuff. I don't tend to like venture out if I'm not quite sure. So I usually get a little bit like, oh, I don't know if that's something I want to do. But for this, yes, I've learned to use pivot tables and I find them to be very, very helpful. So if you are a little bit, just again, like I said, you can always use what I'm using. You can always watch my video, and I can have Caroline, I can send my data sheets, my little practice sheets to you in the email, and you can actually practice along with the video, and it'll actually give you a little bit more confidence using this stuff. And then you can do it, customize it to what you needed to use it for. So the pivot table here, you're just going to click pivot table, and then you're going to say, you want to name your table. So I didn't name my table initially, but this would just be invoice. You can't have any spaces in your names of the on here. Excel won't let you do that. So you have to just, I'm just going to do invoice, invoice records. And then it'll name my table, and then it's going to open it up. It's going to give you an option to open it up in a new worksheet, which I'm going to do. So it's going to, sorry, let's click here. I need to name my table. So let's name my table here. Okay, I'm going to name this invoice. Okay. I'm going to control, you just click somewhere here in the box, control, you can click all of it, you can control all. And then you're just going to do pivot table. It's going to do the table range, and then you're going to do new worksheet, and you just push OK. And it's going to open up this little new worksheet with all these little fields here, which kind of seem a little overwhelming. It's going to give your table a random name. You can change your name of your pivot table. You can change it up here. So you can say data keeping, data records, or just data entry, or whatever you want. You can name it whatever you want, and it will then change it here in this little column. Once you go there, you click on this, it opens up some options for you. And there's some columns, filters, rows, and values, which we can all use to go through, like to filter the data. So for instance, let's say you wanted to look up like the sales value. So you can click sales value and just drag the sales value down in this value section here. And it will give you a sum here of your sales value. And that's not very helpful. I do recommend formatting your, before you start, like before you go on to the next step, to format your cells so that they're all in like a currency. They're all in the current, how you want them. So you could just do, you want them in currency. I like to have less of the decimal places for this kind of stuff. So you'll see there's my sales value. And let's say I was wondering, so how much, let's say I wanted to look for customer region. So I wanted customer region or description. Let's say customer name. I could take customer name and I could stick it here. And it's going to tell me all the customers I've had. This could be like all your vendors, and then how much money I spent at each vendor. And this would give you the sum of all that data. Again, it's taking this data from your sheet that you made prior. So if you make your sheet really, really good prior, this actually is very helpful going forth to like sort your data. I know for me, for like different things, they might need costs right away. And this is how I get my cost right away, because I use this pivot table. I use a pivot table like this. Once you have that, you can do other things too. You can actually sort. You could actually take this, and if you wanted to, you could make a pivot chart. We can just do that really quick. I can show you. You can actually make this, and you can analyze. So you'll see here you have analyze and design. Okay, you have analyze and design. If you want to analyze it, all you have to do is then say I want a pivot chart, and you could make this if you wanted to into a pie. I'm just going to do a little 3D right here. Let's just do 3D. We'll do this one here. Do this one here. Then you click on it and it will give you, you can make it as large and as small as you want. It will actually give you here. One of the things you'll see is that it has like 22 options and it's kind of really squished together. Let's say you didn't really need all 22. Let's say you just wanted to have the top, however many top people. You can actually filter. You can actually filter these values and you can give the top 10. Like say you wanted to know what were your top 10 highest spending places or spending resources. You could make it, you can put 10. You also can make it as much as you want. You can make it down to 5 if you wanted to. You could have it at 10. And you just push 10 and then it makes it a little bit more spread out, and it just it'll only filter the top 10 of whatever you're looking at here. And then you would change, of course, your heading or your title. We always tell everyone to do that. You would just say like this is I guess sales per customer, something like that. You can do. You can change it, and then you just change it. And then anything else you need to do, the plus sign here allows you to add, if you wanted to add data labels, if you wanted to add a data table, you can even add a data table, and you can make it So you can see how much you spent at each individual little place. It'll actually give that to you. So if you were presenting or something and you didn't want to have to go through the entire table of numbers, you could just give them, whoever you're talking to, this value, and they'd have it right in front of them so they could reference it as well. That's for this one, but you can also do a lot of stuff for this. So let's say if I cut this off, just cut that. You can just leave it, you can cut it, or you can paste it into something else, or you can push it over, but I just cut them. There's other things you can do here. For instance, one of the things I find helpful is using this date. If I filter by date, it will give me, let's see, let's put this here. If it will actually tell me how many, where I spent and the sum of the values per date. So this is actually helpful for me because like I said, in certain areas of the college, especially mine, for me, I don't have, it's not 12 months out of the year where I'm going to have a consistent, it's going to be more up and down. So during the, between like the start of school, for instance, we're in the spring semester, when we start in February to March, or March to April, that's when my consumables are really going to start to like deplete themselves. So I can actually see where my consumables, and then when I kind of scroll to get down to like May and June, you're going to start to see them taper off a little, and then you're going to see them kind of go flat, and then you're going to see maybe a little spike for summer, but not much. And then when we start in fall again, it's going to spike again. But this just kind of gives you a rough estimate and kind of allows you to track your data going forward, for like just what you could do for call volume, you could do it for student hours, you can do it for, like, I've used this for student need, for employment need, to see how many hours I was working per, like, to try and get everything done. I've done that. You could use this for just to see the overall need of your department too. It helps you track it, and you have data that is kind of hard to, once you have the data, it's kind of hard not to be able to, you can't really hide the data. It's always pretty much true. So once you have this, you can actually filter. You can filter whatever you want. So let's say we didn't want to filter date, and you can change it however you want. Like if you want the date to be like this and you want it to go across like this, you can do that. You can take the customer name out. You just take this and you just say, I want to remove fields, and you can then stick date in here if you wanted to. And you could see January, but then you don't really see, you see that January used the sum of values was this, but you don't know where these came from. So then you could then put customer name in the rows again, and then you'd have your little customer name, or you can filter for customer name or put it in the columns. However you feel like you want to do this, or you can even do this, and you can switch it. You can switch it so that the customer names comes on top. You just switch it and you'll see the count of the customer names and then the value. You can, whatever works for you. That's what I always say, like for this is what it's going to be specific to what your needs are for your department, or for even your house if you wanted to use it for like budgeting, or whatever you needed to use it for. So far, does anyone have any questions for me at all? Any at all? None at all? We're good. Does anyone have any questions at all? I can show you another thing. Oh, who has a question? Yes.
I do. For practice purposes, do we have access to any type of database of information so we can start playing?
I can give you it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll when I send Caroline the link to the video, I'll send her my data sheets.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I also have one more thing is I also adjunct teach at another college, and I know for faculty it's really annoying when you have a roster that looks like this and you scroll past and you don't have, so I froze this one. You can freeze full on columns so that when you're going to grade, you don't have to then scroll back and forth. So you can actually freeze full on columns so that you don't have to like deal with the fact that I just recently was like doing this where I would scroll past and be like, oh, I wish I could just freeze that column. All I need is the name so I can put the grade in, or all I need is that name so I can mark them absent. What you can do is you can freeze the panes. So you can unfreeze, if I unfreeze all my panes, you can see it's moving, and I have the ID number here, I had the name. I can't track my students because I'm like, I have this name here and now I don't have it anymore. what you can do is you can click this and you can freeze the panes here, and you can freeze the first column, and you can actually customize it if you go down the list. And now mine is now frozen, so I can now go across and I can enter my grades or however you need to do, or enter an invoice or however you need to. I just always found it really annoying that I couldn't figure, I wasn't able to do that, and recently I figured that out. So I always thought I try to show people that one. Another little trick I've learned in Excel, especially for me, is that when I have leading zeros, for instance, I have like 0, 0, 0, like for an invoice, it might be 0, 0, or like 8, they'll have an invoice number like that. What Excel automatically does is it takes the little zeros out. Another thing you can do is a little trick you can do is you can do a little I guess I'm trying to think of like parentheses, but it's just one parentheses, and you do this, and it will actually stay for you, and it won't go away. So another little trick I've picked up over the years to keep the number in there, so it doesn't, the leading zeros are there. For me, the leading zeros sometimes are important, especially for invoice tracking, because the invoice might start with 0, 0, 0. I need that 0, 0, 0 if I was to call the company about an invoice. They're going to wonder where is that 0, 0, 0? Why is that 0, 0 gone? So, and I wouldn't be, and if someone else was to call for me on my behalf, or if someone needed to call, just call, they'd be like, I don't know where that 0 is. So this is just a way to keep the 0 zeros in. Does anyone else have any questions for me at all?
I just want to say, Kateri, that was a great thing that you just said about the zeros, because I was trying to get rid of them through so many ways recently, and I couldn't figure it out. I went to the numerals or whatever it was. So it's just a apostrophe essentially.
It's just a little yeah, I couldn't think of the name of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's apostrophe, and it'll leave the
Awesome.
zeros in.
That's a great tip for me personally. Thanks.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions at all? One of the questions I had, but they're not here, but they asked me just to make sure I put it in there. They work with a lot of different vendors, and they were trying to figure out how to best compress their data. And I recommended them to organize their different worksheets based on vendor type. So if it was like for instance, gardening or something like that, make up vendor types for all the gardening supplies, or all the health and services types of, so that way they have, like I have all my vendors here, but it can become overwhelming if you have a lot. So I told this person that they could just consolidate all their vendors, but they can consolidate by type. So that way you have all your data in one area, and you have all your formulas and everything. On this one, I haven't really, these ones I haven't done the tables to, but I will. This is something I would do, is I would make them into I would change it, and I would, I would control A, and I would make it into formatted as a table, and go down here, and I can do all this, and then I can then have a total value here, and I could add a total row, and I could keep going. Like if I had a new invoice, I could add, let's say I had a new invoice, I could add, the invoice here, I can put the date, and then I can then it will add the cost to it as well. You can keep going, and then I can easily sort my data by what was the largest PO. This was Eurofins. This is a a company that does DNA sequencing. It just says how many sequences we sent to get, how much samples we took to get sequenced and everything. It's just a really good way to track your data and show like your data in a nice organized fashion, so you just don't have sheets after sheets of data. Does anyone have any questions for me at all? Any at all? If no one has any questions for me, that's all I have.
Thank you, Kateri. It was very helpful.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Kateri, for all the information. It was great. I just want to say before people start leaving, if you guys can please fill out the survey that you will be getting about Flex Day toward the end of the day. That helps with further planning. So if you have any questions for Kateri, are you going to hang around for a little bit?
Yes, I'll hang around for a little bit if anyone has any questions for me.
Kateri, can we reach out to you if
yeah, of course. Yeah. My email is my first initial and my last name at citruscollege.edu. Okay. I check it all the time.
Okie doke. Thank you.
Yeah. You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Kateri.
Oh,
I
you're
look
welcome.
forward to having the recording because then I want to watch it a little slower and pause.
Yes, yeah, no, I did the same thing when I was taking classes on this. I like would pause it and then I would be like, let me work on a worksheet and then pause it, then work on a worksheet. So that's why I'll give Caroline the data sheets.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome.
More than one database, that would be useful.
Yeah, I have one and I can
Work
send
on
you
the
mine.
pivot tables.
Yeah, I'll send both of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Hey, Monica,
Yes.
you're able to track the participants, right?
I was looking for how to do that. Apparently there's a record on Zoom, but I don't know how to access
Oh, I
that.
can show you. Want me to show you?
Yeah.
Let me
Can I
show-
stop recording?
Yeah, stop recording.
Okay.
So if you go to